The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone. We're just setting up some stuff here, so we are about to start. Just a few minutes. All right. So just 1 second. All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Java developer training session for dotCMS. Remember, you can make any question in the webinar application when you have, and let's start it. Okay, before start this session, I would like to know if you already have you have any look getting your environment already, and if you were able to attach the debugger as well. If you have any questions, just let me know. I will wait just a few seconds to see if there is any feedback. Okay, it seems everything is okay. So let's start. By the way, I will check anytime that we make a jump to some slide section. I will I will ask you to see if you have any questions or so. Okay, guys. So as we talked yesterday, today we're going to talk a little bit about the different ways that the developer have to customize dotCMS. How you can personalize and even create your own enterprise features running in your instance. First of all, we want to talk about some concepts. So let's start with the slides. Okay. We're gonna try to we're gonna talk about some extensions that we call extension points, which are basically the things that you might extend. But just to be clear, they are the main things that Java developers used to customize, but there are more things that you might find in the .cms documentation that you can extend. And if the time is good, we might see some others. So let's begin. Let's dance. Okay. The first thing we want to talk is the view tools. We talked a little bit yesterday about view tools, but we want to recap again. So view tools are simple pods. You can think in view tool like a simple pods, like a simple Java classes that encapsulates the functionality that are exposed to velocity, and the configurations pretty easy. It's just in a XML. So some of the things that we can do is in the project that we were looking into that yesterday. Just let me reopen it. Okay, 1 second. Okay, all right. Sorry, it takes a little bit time to get exit from the presentation. So something that I would like to show you is you look for the toolbox XML file, right? You will see how the toolbox configuration looks. It is pretty straightforward. You have a key, which is the name that you're going to use to refer in the velocity. We'll see some quick example. Uh, we're gonna talk about the application later, and then this is the class name, so we will doing an extension of this with a static plugin today, so I don't want to talk a lot about it. Just want to show you. Here you can find a lot of the toolbox or view tools that are pre-bundled with dotCMS. But let's say you want to use the parser, which is the one that basically is like including JSP. So for instance, if we go to this one, there might be some parse. So here you can find how it is being called. Sorry. How it is being called. So if I split this window, we can see here, this is the key. So you use that key in order to call the toolbox. It's pretty straightforward, So let's back to the presentation. So toolbox basically provide dotCMS access to the dotCMS content repository, along to the several methods and utilities that will help you. For example, there are some for stream formatting, for stream format, date format, to make calculations, XML and JSON manipulations, etc. Also, view tools can access APIs such as third-party functionality. For instance, you might have an e-commerce such as IBM Commerce, ATG, LastPath, whatever you have behind, and you can make a view tool in order to integrate into the velocity calls to it. For instance, you might get products, price, etc. So at the end, you can think in view tools such as tag libs in JSP. There is a view component for the velocities. Okay. You can hear. Oh. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, it seems someone couldn't hear me. I don't know if you're still having the issue. I just confirmed from someone else. And Jerry, can you hear me? Okay, it seems it's working, guys. Let me know if you're still having the issue. Okay. All right, guys, sorry for the interruption. So let's continue. Okay. So yeah, that's it for now about view tools. Let's talk a little bit about actionlets. Actionlets. The actionlets allow you to run Java code when you are executing a workflow. We talked quite yesterday about workflows yesterday, and you can do pretty much whatever you need. For instance, you can write information to the logs. You can interact with content in dotCMS. We can send emails to a list of authors or content reviewers to indicate that a content has been moved through some step, etc. So let's see a little bit about actionlets. This is the site that we created yesterday, or what we started yesterday. So we're gonna talk a little bit for a few minutes about uh, about workflows. I well, I haven't applied the license yet, so to my local. So I guess we'll have to talk this by now in the demo. I will apply the license just later. Let me see if there. Okay. So I was going to talk about workflows. So as I said, I would like to introduce a little bit, or I would like to talk a little bit about workflows. Now, if you are familiar with dotCMS, workflows were a really important part in dotCMS. Uh, Usually, when you are handling or editing content, there are some actions such as save and publish, so on, that they were just actions handled usually by a struts or something like that in or end. You know. So, but if you want to add your own actions, we allow you to do that by workflows. So you can easily add actions. To when you are here in the content uh, search. For instance, if you click and open a content and start editing, you can add, for instance, more actions here. That's something you can do in the previous version. Now, in the version 5, workflows is not only important, it's almost critical, because the philosophy of .cms is trying to go with all the things associated to content with workflows. So right now, the save and publish are not longer actions from .cms. There are actually workflow actions. So, for instance, let's open a new tab here. If we go to this portlet, and go to the system workflow. So you can see here it says the workflow is the system workflow, and you are in the step publish. So if we go here and see the step publish, you will see some of these actions. In this case, you see the save and publish. These are the actions that you can see here. Release lock in 5.0 is still being a normal .cms action, but right now we are thinking in move this. I mean, this is a discussion in progress, but there are some possibilities to move this to actions as well. So getting back to the workflows, so the workflow is basically a pipeline. It's basically a pipeline of steps, and you can go from some step to another step. For instance, if we get back to this tab and we, for instance, click on save, you know, we already move to another step. That in that case is the unpublish, you know, the unpublish. So you might do some actions here, you know, to do the things, you know. For instance, I don't know why, but the archive, it seems, um, okay, we will explain that later. But yeah, you can do actions, whatever, you know, and move between steps. And these steps are totally easy to create. You can create your own one here, you know, like a new, I don't know, final step or something like that, you know. And you can start adding actions, you know, like my action. You can say which one is the next action, or do you want to just keep in the same action, you know. You can also limitate the users that are gonna use this, or actually use something more generic, like anyone that who can view or can edit or whatever, you know. And also we have introduced the show when stuff. Show when is basically a, it's like a preconditions to show or not the action in the UI. So for instance, it means that you want to show this action in editing, but not in the content search listing, you know, when you're searching. So for instance, this is the editing window, but this is the list window. So the actions that you can get on the right click might be different depending on the show one configuration that you get here, you know. Uh, and you can make more other things. But the most important from the developer perspective for us is that sub actions. You know, the sub actions are actually the Java code. The sub actions are actually the things that do the logic, the business logic, and that's what we call actionlets. You know, so for instance, we have here the for eyes. You know, that's basically that you have to have more than two persons approving some approval. You have to have at least two approvals in order to move to the next step. You know, you also, well, the archive, which is basically archive the content. You know, the copy, which is just make a copy of the content. You know, which what else? You might have the published content, which is just a push publish. You know, to in order to push information to another server. If you want to get out from the current step and reset the workflow to start from the beginning, reset workflow is the one that you want to use. If you want to save a draft, yesterday we were looking how any save is going to generate new versions. If you want to, for instance, if you're working on an article and you want to save your progress, but you don't want to create several versions of it, you know, you might just save as a draft, you know, if you are not interested or on saving versions. Save content, which is basically a save with version, you know, send an email, so on, you know. We also have the translations, etc., you know. And sometimes some of the actionlets also have properties, and this is totally done by Java code, you know. And you can use from the Java, you can use the Java code. You can see these examples in order to see. You can take this code as example in order to see how to render this, you know, and how to manipulate. Probably one of the easiest examples to start looking into that is the comment. Uh, the comment. Where is it? Okay, the comment workflow. You know, this one's just one text box, and you can put here something like content. I think it's content or content like a hello content, something like that. It's gonna generate. It's gonna evaluate this velocity and then generate a comment. You know, and so on. You know, so uh, another thing important now in dotCMS is well, we can leave here there. Another important thing in dotCMS is in the previous versions, you know, of the workflows, you might only have one workflow associated to a content type. You know, now we got the content types, any one of them. You can see you can choose more than one. You know, so this is something that we have introduced in FIO between other things. I mean, workflows. The change of workflows has been so dramatic that I just making a quick explanation about it. But it might be another training, in order to see all the possibilities that we have introduced in workflows. So getting back to workflows, as I said, you can create your own workflows, and you can add new actionlets. So for instance, let's say you have this action and you want to do something like, let's say the comment workflow is not the comment workflow, is something like, I don't know, publish this article in Facebook, in the company Facebook. So in the moment that you go back to the content and click on save, let's say we uh, publishing publishing in Facebook. Let's say instead of just making a comment, it's gonna it's gonna this is gonna it's gonna take the article link and publish in Facebook. So if you go here, and save, okay, and probably we try to go to another portlet such as this one. Here you will see the detail. Why is this? It's taking a little bit. I don't know if this is already reset or not. But the thing is, when you click on the save, I think I might be just something wrong. But basically, the idea is when you click on this, it's gonna be published. It's gonna be saved. It's gonna be published, and you can do more than that. You can say something like, I don't know, I want to save, send an email, and then I don't know, another thing. So if we have the time, we will see how we can implement our own ones. Otherwise, I think tomorrow in the dynamic plugins, we also have some examples. Okay. All right. Okay, let's continue with the next item in the list, which is portlets. Yeah, portlets. dotCMS is basically a container of portlets. So everything you see here is a portlet. For instance, this is the portlet for which tasks this is associated to workflows, and it's basically telling you which actions are already resolved or open or whatever. You can see the flow. I know we have plans to make this more useful in the future. Also, well, it's very popular, the Zycore. This is another portlet, and I think there is some alternative version in Angular. What else? Also, you have the content search. It's probably one of the most used, and so on. So the thing is, you can create your own ones. So we can say the portlets is the mechanisms that the developer use to display a custom view in the backend to the users, that to your users. As I said, the site search is an example, and basically we have three of them. We have the velocity, we will see some example today, the struts, the JSP, and evenly you can create an Spring version. I think there are some example around there. But there is one thing that I want to mention, that the struts, as at all, at least in the part associated to workflows, has been already deprecated from dotCMS. So right now, the example that I'm going to show you has a part, or is adding a portlet with the struts, and it is working in FIO. But it doesn't mean that in the future versions will work, because we are retiring struts. Where, as I said yesterday, we are moving most to the content as a service with REST rather than just, using controllers or something like that, like we used to do it in the past. And finally, we have the hooks. A hook. um, a hook is a class that allows to the developers to run Java code before and after the content has been checking. So for instance, if we go to the source, let's close all of this, and we look for to this interface. You will see this interface has a lot of methods. Most of these methods are mapped with the content-led API interface. So if there is, let's see, checking method. If you have a checking method, this checking method probably exists here. And the same thing for another class, which is called post hoop. We will, we will see some example in more detail about it. But basically, in general terms, this is to do things before, for instance, the action in the content-led API is being called. And this one, the post hop, is the another part, is when you're ready, for instance, when you already do the checking and you want to do something. So for instance, if you want to pre-populate attributes to the content because some reason, or you want to log something, or you want to check extra validations, you might do here in the checking. And in the other hand, if you want to I don't know, notify to someone else or do some past actions or whatever, you might use this one. We will see some example. And finally, well, these are the main four things that you can extend in dotCMS, but there are some other things that we have introduced in 5.0. For instance, I can recall the local system events, which is such as a local broadcasting to meet events. I think tomorrow we will see, or we will at least check some of the OCI examples that we have. We also, and so on. We have other ways to extend dotCMS. So let's move to the next one. But before, let's see if there is some question. Okay. In the previous version dotCMS admin, I could view all the relationships. Is this feature gone in 5.0? Well, this is a very good question about the relationships, and yeah, I'm not pretty sure. Let me see if I can I can answer that for tomorrow, if you don't mind. Thanks for your question. Okay, before continue, I will give you just like 1 minute to see if there is another question. Okay, there is another one. Okay, there is another question that if do we have any hooks for templates and containers. Unfortunately, hooks is only for the content API. We don't have any for that one, and maybe you tell me what is your intention. I might give you some ideas about another options. Because for example, that if you want to do things for template or container, well, I was thinking to use filters, for instance, but I think it is an interesting case. Unfortunately, the answer is not. We don't have, but it might be an interesting topic to bring to dotCMS to see if we want to do things like that, like hooks for some other components, you know. I just gonna give you one more minute to see if there's some questions. Otherwise, we're gonna continue. The today's session is not so much. It's not so much. How do you say? It's mostly practice rather than, you know, conceptually. So we're gonna jump to, yeah. Let's start theory. Okay, guys. Let's continue with the training. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're gonna start talking about the today's topic. You know, which is static plugins. Okay. Well, static plugins. Static plugins was the first way to extend dotCMS, and it is the first way to add custom functionality to our systems. You know, in order to meet the user requirements, custom user requirements. There are things that you can do with static plugins that you are not able to do with dynamic plugins. You know why? Because static plugin is deployed when the server is off. I mean, you have to turn off the server in order to apply a static plugin. So just because the nature of that means there are things that you can do. Um, I mean, I can imagine almost anything you can do, because at the end you are just copying code. For example, in a WAR file, you can edit the web XML. If you want to add a new servlet or security constraint, change any mapping, filter, listener, so on. This kind of tasks are the things for a static plugin, because it deploys when the server is down. You know, we are talking about the Java Enterprise stack, and this happens no matter what, if it is WebSphere, uh, Tomcat, or whatever order. This is not something associated to dotCMS itself. It's mostly associated to the common Java application, or how the Java application servers works. So we would like to start talking about a these topics. Okay. All of these are things that you might do with static plugins, but you are not only limited to them. We already covered a little bit of them, such as the configuration settings, sorry. We also see macros. There is some example about macros, that we will see later. View tools, RESTful interfaces, or uh, RESTful endpoints, portlets, JSP, and also Spring. You can add whatever thing you want in uh, static plugins. So let's start from the beginning. Configuration. As I said, we already covered a little bit about configuration, and I think in the next slide we're gonna talk a little bit more about configuration. you know. So I think it will be better to talk about this in the next slide. Velocity macros. Velocity macros. Uh, we, velocity macros is a legacy thing that we have. We will see an example today about how to do uh, velocity macros, but we're not used to use that so much. There are, if you want to extend or you want to have custom things in velocity, the way to go is the toolbox or the view tools, which is this one. We already talked a little bit about view tools, and I think today we have some example of it. We don't have example about RESTful, but basically it is Jersey, and yeah, I mean, if we have time, we can try to improvise and make one. Well, we already talked about portlets. Well, you can also have GSPs, and you can also have Sprint. So all these things in general, you can add more than that, are things that you might do with static plugins, So let's move to the next one. Let's see, first of all, if there is any question. No. Okay, let's continue with. We're almost done with the slides today. The rest of the presentation will be more uh, coding or explaining examples. So, okay, we want to start talking about the directory layout of the dotCMS, for a plugin. So for that, we're gonna explain a little bit here. Just let me close this. As well, yesterday we were talking about the structure of the Gradle project, So if you recall, we have this folder that I said is a custom theme for us. This is not part of the Maven or Gradle structure. This is something custom for us. And when you are developing something, when you are creating a plugin for .cms and you want to debug the static plugin, you might put the static plugin here, So if we go, okay, what happened with it? Okay, so if we go to okay, if we go to GitHub, just let me paste this here. If we go to GitHub and we look for the plugin seeds, I just paste in the chat. This is the repository that we have as example. They are basically like kind of a blueprints, that you can take and see examples about how to do things. So we have two. One of them is the OCI, that basically are the dynamic plugins, and the other one is the static. For today's session, we're gonna open this one, the static. So let me share as well. Okay. So here, if you clone this, if you go here, okay, this is the URL to plugin. So you only have to do git clone in order to get the repository in your local, So getting back to the project, sorry, we have some example here, If we have time, we will try to cover some other examples. But right now we have three, There are the examples that we're gonna see today. But by now, I already download this code, So I already have here all the plugins project, So here there are the statics, and there are one of them which is called the skeleton. We can open here the skeleton, and the skeleton is basically an empty project to start making your own things. It's like a template or something like that. So what you can do is you can just copy this one, go to the plugins and paste, and for this training, we're gonna rename it as a training. Don't remember again. Okay, we don't want to include that in the GIF. So as you can see, we have here a new plugin. It is doing nothing by now, but it will, you know. So let's get back to the presentation. So, okay, let's start talking about the config folder. As you can see, the config folder is not empty, but these files are. So let's start talking about the config, which is really important. So as I said, the static plugins allow you to change the dotCMS configuration. You can add or even replace files that exist in a directory, in dotCMS installations. From the support standpoint, we really recommend to our clients to use static plugins to add or modify configuration properties. Instead of going directly to the files in the distro, and change it, it will be make our work and your work in your case a lot more easier, and you will avoid situations where you accidentally change properties and that you didn't want to change, or just see the properties that you already have customized. Let's say a scenario. You go straight to the configuration, for instance, you go straight to the dot marketing, okay, dot marketing config, and start making changes here. You may make some comments and etc. But let's say you want to upgrade dotCMS from 5, let's say, to 6 in the future. So you might have a problem because sorry, you have to take all your custom configuration, and take this to the version 6. Also, and it might be a big trouble, if you don't get all the things. Another another thing is, if you have the configuration, you might share between other projects. I mean, if you are working in a company that have several projects, uh, you might uh, you might share the configuration, such as just like a dependency. And also talking about the upgrade, talking about the upgrade, you might just take all the plugins under the plugins folder, just take them and try to see how they work in the new version. So from the uh, in terms of maintainability, working that way will be easier. Now, if you're working in your local, in your local environment, and you want to change some variable here, or something like that, well, it's quite okay if you know what you are doing, But for production environments, we do, again, guys, we do recommend to use configuration, So we will see some example just in a few seconds. Okay. Okay, before start, one of the other things that you can do in .cms is override things. We'll see if we have time to see one example. But when you override things, you might know how. I think we already talked about this yesterday, but let's recap. You have to understand how the class path works. So let's move. Let's see if we can move to Tomcat. Okay, so well, the first thing that is going to be loaded when the Tomcat starts is, of course, the JDK classes. Then whatever is in the libs, all these classes, which are basically the Catalina, all the GSP and server definitions, etc. is going to be loaded. And finally, the apps. So the apps is basically two things or two folders that are important. The first one is the classes, and the second one is the lib. So everything which is in the lib is going to be override by the classes. So if you have in the lib one jar with some class, just let's say con dot .cms dot something, and you have the same class here, con .cms dot something. The class that is going to be taken by Tomcat is the class here. The other one is going to be override by this one. So basically, when you are creating a static plugin, what we actually do is to take the Java class and put in here. That is the way that we can do hotfixes or something like that to avoid, for instance, the hotfix to avoid executing the release code and execute the fix. Okay, there are some disadvantage. The classes compiled in this kind of plugin in the same classes might be under the what if classes, and they share the same context as the .cms classes. So one of the concerns of the Java Enterprise is which one is going to be picked by the class, but so this is the thing I already explained. Okay, before continue, I will check if there is any question. It's in no, so let's continue with example. Okay, something we're gonna talk before continue with the presentation or the example is how we handle the branches. I think I I think I mentioned that yesterday, but again we want to recap. As you can see here in the core, which is the main code for .cms. Let me put it in the chat. Okay, you might see the branch. Here you can see a lot of branches, and here you can find the tags. For instance, if we get back to the if we get back to the console, that we have is the version 501. So git branch to see which one we have. Master is the work in progress that we have right now. So the code for the next release, and this is the code that we already released. As a tag, you can't change a tag, so it is just like a read only. So you can make sure that the code is here is gonna be is the same code that we already released. And then we have branches. Branches are still alive. Because they are work in progress. For instance, you can see here some of the next releases that we're going to do. This is like a maintenance, the 4.2 or 4.4, and some of the others are basically the work in progress that we're doing right now. But the thing is, you have to go here to the tag, So it is pretty straightforward how to do that. You only have to, usually you have to do git fetch, to refresh the meta information in git. Okay, let's make clear. And then you can see which git branch less remote. You can see how many branches are in the region that you might just make a git checkout and the name of the branch. So we have here several, and you can do the same thing for tags as I did. So that's basically what we're going to talk about. That we want to talk about this. How to get the source code. Okay. All right, 1 second. Okay, so get back to our, um, integration development environment, you know, and let's get back to, if you remember, the skeleton, the training plugin that is empty, So as I said, this is a very basic plugin, and well, it works really great as a skeleton for all our own, for you, to put all your own custom static plugins. Uh, it is usually the way to go. You copy and paste the skeleton, rename it, and start from it to create your own plugin. It will be the easier way, and you you will have less problems if you proceed in that way. So we already copied and renamed to training. Okay, well, the first thing what we want to do is, we already showed you a little bit about this yesterday, but we want to do the exercise again. I mean, there are several things uh, that you might override in .cms, and there is some convention that we used to follow for most of the files. I know some of the new ones are not in that way, but which is .cms config. You use the hyphen x. So for instance, if there is some .cms config cluster, there might be a file in the .cms distribution which is called config cluster with all the things already pre-bonded. There might be also called dot sorry dot marketing config. Dot marketing config. This is the main one. That group most of the configuration. And also there might be others such as the system. You know, this is the system is basically a file that we're gonna take and put all the content here into the system properties. I'm talking about Java, system, about this class. So when you get a property here, you might get the properties that we set here. So you can also create a system hyphen x properties if you want to override system properties. For instance, hibernate is one of them. You might override hibernate things using system properties. Even that, as I said yesterday, we are not longer promoting to use or hibernate. But I mean, it's just an example. There might be more things that you might want to set by system. There are another one which is called portal. You know, and also you have the portal X. There is also one for the web XML, so you can extend the web XML with that convention. And so on. There are many files that you might extend following that way in the config, in the config folder. Okay, so yeah, let's continue. Okay, so let's get started with deploying our plugin. I look some very basic examples. The first thing I really want to look into is, as I said, the configuration. So uh, the thing that we're going to do right now is play a little bit with the configuration files. So one of the things that we're going to do is set here in this one, some property called my prop. Just put in test me. So as I mentioned before, you have to turn out turn off your or turn down your environment in order uh, to run the or to get the new changes that you have in the plugin, And right now we have to compile again. I will try to use the backup in order to avoid. I'm using H2, and so I don't want to lose all the assets. So let's see if there is any question. Meanwhile, is running this thing. Okay, we have more. Sorry. Okay. Uh, okay. My case is when I publish a page or a template, I want to flush my external cache. Yeah, you can achieve that by workflows. You can create an actionlet that basically is part of the safe, and you can put here the logic when you make the publish. You can, make the call to your external cache. Yeah, this is the way to go. I think so. I mean, there might be more ways to go, but I think this is the right way, to go. Okay. Yeah, sure. Display. Okay. Is that enough for you? I just changed the resolution. If you are having issues, for instance, with the what I'm showing in the browser, just let me know. I will try to use uh, a higher font. Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's already done. So let's see. Okay, how long does it take to start up? So sorry. One of the things that we want to do is go to Tomcat, and see how the dot marketing config looks. So we look for the dot marketing config. Okay, Visual Studios. Okay, I don't want you. So we have to look for. I mean, which one is the name? My prop. My prop. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not. I hope you can. I don't know how to do this higher. Yeah. Okay, as you can see here, I already have property, the new property, my custom property already merged into the Tomcat. I mean, get back again. This is the classes folder into the Tomcat. So in that way, I can then get this property. Okay, sorry. So in that way, I can get this property. So all the things that I would like to show you is the convention that we use when we merge. We say something like a begin plugins. Here we put the name of the plugin, and basically that is that it is a really good way to keep the track of the changes. Okay, so yeah. Okay, So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna change some of the existing properties. I mean, in this scenario, we already add some new property. One of the things that you might, I don't know if you know or not, is how to get that information. There is some class which is called config. You know, so this config is basically a combination of the uh, sorry, the dot marketing config. Okay, the dot marketing config and the cluster, the dotCMS. So with this class, you can get all the things that are in the dot marketing and the dot cluster evenly, all the modifications that you made in in all your static plugins. And it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you see, it has uh, different methods to get a string. It has different methods to get a boolean, so on. And you can sometimes, some of the methods has a convention to get a default value. So for instance, let's see one example very quickly. For instance, this one. Oh, sorry. For instance, this is an example. Well, this is a bad example. This could be a better example. Sorry. Uh, for instance, we are asking here about the assets real path. But if the property is not in any of these files, we're gonna use test resources as a default. So there is the way that you can interact in the code with the configuration. The system is going to be part of the system, as I already mentioned. And I think there is another one, I think it's for portal properties, product util. It is. No, there is one more to get the portal properties, but I cannot recall right now. So yeah, let's close all of this. So right now here we are adding a new property. Now we want to take the dot marketing oh my god, dot marketing config, and we are looking for some of the properties that already exist. Let's say this one, the default content to the default language. I don't want to I don't want to start talking about this property, but in general terms, is when you want to do a fallback when you are searching content. I mean, usually you search content in a specific language, such as English or Spanish or whatever. In this one, you're gonna, if you are looking, for instance, in Spanish and the default language is English, if the content doesn't exist in Spanish, it's gonna retrieve the English. So by default, it is in false. So let's turn it on. Okay, so it's the same exercise. We just shut down the server. Okay, deploy backup again. You can do deploy where Tomcat or deploy where Tomcat backup. Deploy where Tomcat backup takes a little bit more time deploying, making the compile, because it has to make the backup. But you don't have to re-index and etc. Mostly that we are using a H2 database, so it will take longer. Because we have to create the database and then re-index. It might take some time. So, okay. Meanwhile, it's compiling. Okay, there is not any other question. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see, it's already done or not. Well, we are almost there. Okay, sorry for that, guys. I think I have to cleaning up. My computer is a little bit slow these days. Have been working so much, I guess, and probably the hard drive is almost fully. Okay, it's already done. So let's get back to do the same exercise. So we move to the root with inf classes, and we look for the .marketing config. We open this thing. So which one is this one that we want to check. Okay, as you can, if we get back to the source and we look for the .marketing, we can see here is in false, in false, right? Now, if you get back to the configuration, sorry, not that the configuration. If we open at the where-inf, the deployed var, as you can see, it is already commented. The original value is already commented, and there is some other comment that says this property has been overridden by the training plugin. And this is, you don't have to touch this, guys, these comments, because this is the way that we can roll back when you do undeploy plugins. You can right now we are using just as a development, but if you go to the distro, we can go to the distro to see. Okay, this is the distro, and here in the bins there is one called deploy plugins for Windows and Unix, and another one called undeploy plugins, for both operating systems. So when you deploy, it's gonna happen this, when you undeploy, it's gonna roll back the thing. So these comments are important. It is the way that CMS has to make the rollback, and then we have to look for the another action, and there we go. As you can see, next to our sorry, to the custom property, there is the overridden property that we set in true. So basically, it is the way that we have to override, things in dotCMS. I don't know if you have a question or not. Let me check. Okay, so let's continue. So in following this pattern, you can not only override properties, you can also add here the web XML. We have an example about it, how to add things to the web XML, port it, etc. But here in the root, you can also add override things or add things. So for that, we're gonna do example. And I think this example is just gonna work into the distro. So we're gonna move to the distro, okay? Or maybe we can create here and then move to the distro. I think would be better. So what we're going to do is we're gonna overwrite something, or we're not gonna overwrite. We're gonna add some file, So the first thing that you have to do is you have to go to the distro and see how it looks, here in the dot server. So the first folder we have to create is the dot server, as you can see. So we create here dot server. Then, as you can see, the distro is Tomcat with this number. Okay, Tomcat under the dot server. Okay, all right. Then web apps, as you can see here, it is web apps. So we create here web apps. Basically, what we're doing is the same mapping, because we want to override the root. Then, then root, the same thing here, root into the web apps. Okay. It is always weird to me, because you have root and then you have root again. But anyway, it is what it is. And finally, we're gonna create some text file, like a training text. We're gonna say this is just a training example. Okay, so we already have the necessary steps, to we already have the necessary steps to add this great file to your distro. So by now, just we're gonna reveal in the finder, and we're gonna move to the distro. Okay, distro, and we are gonna put here in the plugins next to the config. Okay, oops, sorry, I did something wrong. I have to. Okay, so in recap, what I did is I came to here, reveal in the finder. I copy this one to the distro. Okay, the questions, and then we're gonna move to the distro. Okay, and then we're gonna call the plugins deploy. Sorry, plugins now. What I'm thinking. Deploy plugins. Okay. All right. It's not set to Java Home. Just give me 1 second to do it. Export. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Basically, you can set all of this in your SSH configuration. I don't usually need it, so okay, there we go. We are deploying our great plugin. It is gonna take some time. All right, it is done. So we get back to the distro .server with app, and then as you can see, we already have the training text into the distro. So this is basically the way that you can not only put new things, and but also override things. One of the interesting things when you are doing this is the ondeploy is not going to remove new files. The ondeploy is just going to remove files that you override. I mean, you can go to HTML and I don't know, this test, you can override this test, So what that dotCMS, what it's going to do is it's going to take the file to overwrite and save in a folder called backup. So when you run the script under the bin on deploys, it's gonna get back the previous file and remove the one that you override. So it's just something to keep in mind. Okay. Now, the files that you want to customize under the root directory, they are not, well, as I mentioned, they are not merged, they are overwrite, Well, this is the thing that I already explained. Okay. Okay, now, regarding this kind of plugin, for packaging, there are some people that are used to ask if the static plugin is a jar or not. Well, the answer is well, it is both. It is a jar and it is not a jar. As you saw, it is what it is. It's something very legacy. You know, and it is I mean, the plugin is the training folder. This is the plugin. And something that you see is I have to set the Java home in order to compile. I mean, we're taking the sources and compiling. So you can think in a proprietary and legacy structure that we we have as a company .cms, to the things. It is what it is, and that we usually do. I mean, is we create a zip. We go uh, to the plugins. We zip this, and we share this with the support or whatever you have, whatever is in charge of deploying, so they can take this in SSH or whatever and un- unzip in the remote server. It's a manual task. As I said, um, static plugins was the first way to customize that CMS, and we have keep the nature of it across the time. So we have another way to do that, to do things, such as the dynamic plugins, the thing that we're going to see tomorrow. But it is what it is. Okay. So, however, remember what I mentioned. You can override .cms classes, extend functionality, fixing issues, anything you want. That's how we do in support. So, in case you need to place new classes under the lib for a application server, you have to pick up the changes, and in a particular scenario you will need to have our plugin in the form of the jar file. You don't need the jar or modify the configurations, but you need to do it by changing the source code. And this is in some way true. So let's make some minor example to illustrate that part. Okay. Okay. One thing that I want to do is I want to, okay, this is not this one. I want to remove this because it's not going to be much with I don't want to have that one. One of the things that I would like to do is, well, let's explain a little bit more about the structure. So as I said, well, the configuration, we already explained the configuration. GSPs, we're not, I'm sure we're going to see some GSPs, maybe. But basically, the way that we can override GSPs, and right now we're going to see the lib, and as it says here, anything that you put here in the lib is gonna be gonna be copied to the .cms waiting lib, and this is pretty much when you have a dependencies as part of your custom code. I don't know if you are using a library, for instance, to generate images or to manipulate JSON or whatever. You might have to use the lib. Uh, there might be some things that you have to keep in mind when you are doing that. For instance, if you have, let's say, you have more than one plugin in your local. and both are using the same library, you know, but with the same name, it won't be a problem because I mean, I think this is alphabetic descending, the way that the deploy happens, you know, the deploy plugins. So it's gonna take one of them, and then I'm putting to the libs, and then the last one is gonna overwrite. The problem is, as you might imagine, when you have different versions of the libs, so it might be a mess. So be really careful about it. Usually, when clients are you know telling telling us that something is not working support, sometimes it's because conflicts in the yards. So I think I have here. Let's see. We get back to the training, to the distro. Not the distro. Sorry, to the source. Plugin seeds static. Okay, where is it? Okay, this one. Let's see if this works. Okay, I already create in advance some project that is doing something for dotCMS, that is basically like a hello or something like that. Just let me see, because I think this is not the right one. 1 second. Okay. Okay, find it. Okay. Okay, in advance, before the training, I create a library, that I want to include. This library is basically uh, saying hello, I think so, if I recall, okay, when .cms is starting. So we're gonna copy this in the libs. You know, uh, if we have time, I will explain how to do these things. But something that I would like to do is right now to add the configuration to see how it works. I mean, this is a dependency. Let's say this is a dependency that you have. So what you have to do is to, here in the source, here is the place that you might imagine when you have to put your source. We'll see a few examples later. So dotCMS, just quickly, dotCMS has a mechanisms called to initialize your stuff. Basically we use a standard thing called extensible framework, which is basically the service locator, and it basically just need you to overwrite this interface, con.cms config.initializer, and you have to put here the implementation. The implementation is here, in the dot market, in the jar that I already create. So what we have to do is we have to get back to here. I think it's already shut down, so we have to compile again. Meanwhile it's compiling. Let's see if there's any question. Nope. Okay, just wait for a second. Okay, we will see this example, and then we're gonna make a 10 minutes break, if you agree. Okay, it is taking so long. Do you have any question? This is the right moment to make the question. We're just waiting for it. Okay, so okay, let's start it. Okay, it is starting. So here in the log that we're looking for is some log, some message, in order to know that the plugin works, But meanwhile, well, let's wait just a second to see if it works. Okay, we will see later. Right now, I want to take advance and go to the deploy. I want to make sure that the library is already included. It is called dot. Yeah, it is called dot init. Okay, what happened? Okay, dot init. Okay, it seems by some reason it wasn't deployed. Uh, okay. Okay, guys. Let's do something. Let's make uh, the break right now, and then we are gonna jump to another environment. I mean, because right now we're using the environment uh, that we create yesterday. That we check out. But I'm gonna use my day by day environment. I already have all the things deployed there, so I think we're gonna move faster because we're not running out of time. But with this configuration, it might take more time than expected. So let's make a break, 10 minutes, and we will continue after that. Thank you. Okay, guys, I'm back. Let's just give us 2 minutes more in order to continue. And as I mentioned, we're gonna take advance that in the afternoon. I already test all the plugins, to make sure they work for this presentation. So they're already deployed and ready to go in my local. So the idea initially was to take one by one from the GitHub, copy and paste in the project, and then run it. But unfortunately, I think it's taking so long. And we only have 3 hours, so in order to try to cover more, and if you don't mind, we're gonna follow this way. So 1 minute more, and we will continue. Okay, guys. Well, welcome again, and let's start with the second part of this presentation. I hope you are all ready to start. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're gonna take this environment that I already set up, all the plugins that we would like to see. There are a bit more, but don't pay attention. And well, we're working on the when we're adding a lib. So as I said, this lib is gonna be the idea of this lib is gonna be loaded by the dot marketing. We can see it just to explain really quickly. I think there is it. Okay, there we go. Uh, I think this is a Maven project, so it's pretty much the same thing. We're uh, taking the dotCMS dependency, and basically we have something called the simple printout.initializer, and it is implementing an interface. This interface, I think, was introduced in the previous version of dotCMS, which is called dot initializer. So what the only thing that you have to do is, in order, I mean, sorry, anything that is a dot initializer, it is the new way to initialize components, in dotCMS. I mean, if you need something that starts when dotCMS is ready, it is a dot initializer. It is just a simple interface, that basically has a init and a name. That's pretty much. And in this case, what we are doing is just printing out to the console, printing this message to the console. And how .cms is aware about this initializer is basically by the extensible framework. So the only thing that you have to do is you have to create the meta-inf and a folder. If we see if we see here the services, sorry, if we see the finder, you will see the meta-inf, the services, and then a file which name is the actual class but of the interface. So it is the way that Java is gonna know uh, that this class has to be looked up when it's started, by the service provider. So that's pretty straightforward thing. I just package this as a lib, and put in here, and I have to refer again, to do the dot marketing. I mean, the services configuration again. So let's start the application, and see the console. I think that this I already turned out this, and we will take advance to another thing right now. We will see this example, but I will like to show you another thing at the meantime, so if you go to the dotCMS, there is a servlet called main servlet. This is one of the main classes in dotCMS, and it has a init, so you can just go to the source, this is the real source, copy this class, and you can just go to the source in our training plugin, right? In our training plugin, sorry, and use the same class path, and just paste. In this case, we are using the same code, and we are just printing a message. You can evenly, if you mark this as a source, I think you can evenly make a debugger here. You know, okay. Well, it says it's a duplicate class. This is because we are using the same as class. Let's see if we can debug this. So, so we just started. Let me just bring the comments here. Just clean it up. So let's start up. I'm putting the debug mode on. Okay. Okay, so it is starting. We are going to check two things. We're using the lib that we already deployed as part of the training plugin, and we override a class that is going to print a message. Okay, so as you can see, uh, dotCMS already realized that we are using override class, and if we go to the Tomcat, very quickly, because time is our enemy. Okay, dot master. Okay, so we can hear root what-inf classes. So come, here is the path. The class path is con library portal servlet. There you go. Here is the class that we already override. This is the way that we use to override classes. Make hotfixes and etc. So as you can see, we're gonna print the message and leave it, and we get back to the logs, and there we go. Here is the log. This log, my custom main servlet, and here down there might be, well, not yet, but there might be in some moment the another log by the lib. Now regarding this kind of override, you have to be really careful when you do that. Why? Because this kind of hot fixes are fixes that you are making for a specific version of the code. And as you know, we have semantic versioning. So for instance, it's going to work in lower releases such as 5.01 or even 5.1, etc. But in the moment that we release version 6, there might be not compile or even compile, because we already changed the compatibility. So these kind of things are useful, There are some scenarios that we might use, but it's better to use extension points, because they are more abstract and less. They are decoupled from the code, so it is a better way to use. This is probably the last thing that you want to do. You know. Okay. Okay, there we go. I don't know if you remember. I can reopen the. Okay, I already closed it. The project Maven. But if you recall, it says hello world from this class. So there we go. Hello world from this class. And this is the class is already in the. This class is already in that lib. So as you can see, you can debug your changes. Not only if it is override, you can debug uh, new classes by and you can use libs and etc. So do you have any questions before continue? Okay, since not, so let's continue with the next example. Okay, the next example, if we get back to the plugin sets. Okay, plugin sets, static. The first example that we're going to see is the macro. As I mentioned before, macro is not uh, it's not a thing that we used to use, but anyhow. Okay. Uh, okay. I already copy here. Let's exclude console exclusion. Okay. Okay. Here we have the macro. Let's close all this. Okay. So the first thing what we want to show you is the config. So here in the config, we already have the macro. Ma um, Basically, the macro is another hello world. You know. So this is a simple hello world macro, as I said, nothing fancy. When you call this, it's just going to print the string hello world macro. As I mentioned before, we don't really recommend to use macros. This is kind of something really old school. And remember, static plugins have been here for a while, and now we have dynamic plugins. So dynamic plugins probably is a better way to customize your sites. However, as I said, static sometimes are a little bit powerful. So let's see. This example. This example is pretty straightforward. It's just adding this. As you can see, is hyphen x. It means it is gonna merge into the macros VM. So what we have to do is we have to go to the site. Okay. Okay, I think we have not any index. So we have to wait for the index in order to make it work. Okay, so in order to test this, I think I already have the test already done. But we have to wait for the index. 1 second. Okay, we're almost done. It's a small site, so it doesn't take so long. Okay. Okay, I think it's pretty much done. It's not, maybe. Let's see again. Okay, basically what you have to do, I already did that, but what you have to do is you have to come here, and create a page, just create a page, put a name and etc. You can use the blank template, close, but we already have one created, so let's reuse it because of time. So if you see here, we already add a widget, you know. So here, as you can see, let's put this down. This is another example. So here, as you can see, we are calling the macro, and the macro basically is pretty much, I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay, yeah. As you can see, it's basically the same thing, hello world, and you call with parentheses, and the hashtag. And that's pretty much what you have to do, you know. So as you can see here, we're saying hello macro, and this is basically all it does. I mean, you are giving an option to the users to add this hello macro. I mean, you can create another one with h2. I think it's gonna work. Save and publish. Close this. So yeah, as you might see, there is two hello macros. The first one which h2, header one, and the second one with header two. So your clients, when you create a macro, your clients can call this macro in order to print uh, not only messages but also I don't know, routines or something like that. You can find more documentation about macros in the .cms site, but what we want to show you is not just the way that to extend. So let's jump to the another to the next one. Well, I don't know if you have any questions before continue. Okay. So the next example is the one what we call serlet, and you can find it here, the serlet. Sorry, let's make this bigger. This is the serlet, the con.cms serlet. So I already copied here, in this one. Let's close this just to continue explanation. So the first thing I want you to do is something that I already mentioned before. In the config, you will find the web XML -x, dash x. So let's make this bigger. So, I mean, this is the web XML from .cms. This is the one that is in the release, and basically has all the filters, listeners, so on, that we have. That we are saying here is we want to add this serlet with this mapping, on some constraint. Doesn't pay so much attention to this. It's just to show you that you can add more than that. You can add filter or whatever you want. But by now, we are just adding a serlet to keep that simple to explain. And well, it is just really, if you are familiar with serlets, just very basic things. So we can go to the source and we can take a look to the hello world serlet. This one which is declared here is this one. And it is pretty much simple. There is another hello world. So we are just writing into the response the hello world, and we can debug this in a few seconds. So the way to call it is just to, I think the debug is already running. Yeah. So, okay, the way to test it is just to call this URL. Okay, as you can see, I already pick the debug. So by now, just let's keep running. So as you can see, there is just a page, that says hello world, you know. But something interesting that you can do, well, this is mostly related with the environment, integration of environment, but you can really, I mean, if you're making tests or something like that, you know, you can take your variable and you can set the value, such as hello world, uh, to all of you in the Java dev training, so gotta go, and we already changed that. If you have already configured your IDE, Eclipse or IDEA or whatever, to make the hot deploy, you can make hot deploys. Just make small changes. Usually, if you have the right configuration, I not use this in my local environment, to be honest. But if you use it, it mostly work in dotCMS if you are doing changes over, the what is inside of the methods. In the moment that you change a variable, or you change a method, or you add a method, I mean, you change the structure, and you have to redeploy again. That's the way we see it works. Okay. Okay. Before jumping to another one, there is a question. So let's see what it is. Uh, if we are building a static plugin for dotCMS distribution, not for the source code, how we can build that? Okay. Basically, if you're not using the root folder, you know, all of these examples that we have here, you can just copy and paste into the. Let me see if I have the distribution here. Oh, I already closed it. No, yes. Okay, here. There is a distro, right? So in the distro, there is the plugins, right? So you only have to take your plugin that you already debug, that you already test, that you already create in your source. And for instance, I don't know, the servlet, you only have to copy, paste, and finally you have to go to the console. Let's see if I still have in the. Okay, this is the one that I hide. To the distros, and with the server turn off, deploy plugins. This is all you have to do, and you will have the code. I mean, your plugin working. The way that I am, I mean, what I am trying to show you right now is how to create. What is the usual way to create the static plugins, which is putting in the source code the plugins, and then you can debug. You can, you know, easier developer, long, etc. But when it is ready, you only have to take the folder and paste into the plugins folder into the .cms distro, and call to deploy plugins, and that's it. The only weird case that I mentioned is the when you are overriding, I don't know, JSP or something like that in the root, because the Tomcat path in the development environment is a bit different than the distribution. So that's the only thing. But at the end, it's pretty much the same thing. I don't know if you have another question, otherwise we can move to the next example. Okay. Okay, let's move to the next sample. The next sample is something that we have been talking a lot, which is the view tool, this one. So we get back to the code here, the plugin sets, and this is the view tool. Okay, this is the one that we are going to use. So I just copy and paste here and I deploy it, so I already have the code done. So let's talk a little bit about that. So that the first thing that I want to take a look for the view tool is the config folder. Similar that the web XML that we just saw a few seconds ago, a few minutes ago. There is the toolbox. If you remember, we had the toolbox XML. There are some examples of it, and this is the one that we want to uh, add to the existing ones. Yeah, great. Another Hello World. It seems we love Hello World. Okay, so essentially, the well, the front end of .cms, as I mentioned several times, is a huge velocity engine, that we customize to do some different things, and this is probably the main way to extend the view in .cms for the front end, So the view tool are an approach for providing your own custom solutions. I already mentioned several times. For instance, I have seen some examples or some clients connecting to external servers, by the way, using Jersey client to connect to a web service uh, in order to display any information from some of the service in their intranet. Uh, Probably one of the disadvantages of the toolbox is they follow the pattern of content first instead of code first. So, for instance, pause methods, something like that, are a little bit more difficult to handle. It's more uh, created for getting things. So Spring controllers, for instance, works better if you want to process, for instance, a form, something like that. So in order to map your tool view in velocity, you need to give a key. Right now what we're using is hello world, and which is the first tag under the tool. And this is the way that we're able to call in your code, in your velocity, the toolbox. Is basically the key, similar to the tag libs. And you might work in content, containers, widget, line, etc. Then I want to explain what is the scope. I think I promised I was going to explain it. So the scope defines when an instance of the tool will be created. If you are familiar with Spring, it's a pretty similar idea, or maybe not with Spring, with taglibs. Taglibs is following the same scope, pretty similar. So there are, there are three possible values for it. The first one is application, which is the one that we're using. An application says that the view tool is going to be a singleton, and it should be thread safe. Uh, these objects are going to instantiate just one and will be reused across the request and context. As long as you start up the Tomcat, you will have the one instance until you turn off the Tomcat. So this is application scope. Request is another one. I don't know if we have some requests here. Yeah, messages is request. So an instance of the view tool is created for every request. Request view tools have access to the server, or to the objects HTTP server request and HTTP server response. That are the common objects from the server API, and can call methods of these objects in their code. And finally, there is one called session. Let's see, we have some session here. It seems we don't have any. But basically it's the same. It's an instance of the tool that is going to be created and stored in the user session, you know. So finally, as the tag clips, this is the class name that you are going to use, you know. It's a full qualifier class name. So basically, when you're using servlets or Spring controllers or view tools, you can create pretty much everything you need on .cms, you know. Of course, all of this philosophy is probably the philosophy that we used to use uh, before, you know. I mean, it's still being valid today, but for today, I will expect to use another approaches such as content as a service, you know, by adding jersey endpoints and probably using Angular in a in a stateless page or something like that, delegating the authentication to a third party such as SAML or Okta or whatever, you know. I think this is more like the modern applications that we use, you know, but you're still having the possibility to use these familiar approaches, you know. So I'm going to open the class, you know, and the class is pretty much simple. It's just another hello world, you know. So as you can see, there is a method. I think you can include any method you want. We will see in the code how to refer it, you know. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. It's just returning a string to says hello world, you know. So let's see how it works. Okay, just checking if there is any question. If there is not, so I get back to the browser, you know. And I think we already have some example. So in the same widget that we had previously with the macro, we have the hello world, you know. So as you can see, we're using the key. Let's see if we can just create, make this bigger. Okay, the hello world here, you know. And if we go to the code, there is hello here. So you might have more methods, and this is going to be called by reflection, by velocity, you know. So it's pretty straightforward. You can receive parameters, process them, and make something, you know. As I said, we have several examples in the toolbox XML about I don't know, string. I think there's one called string. No, this is, or which one is? For instance, this is something funny. You're able to get the config, you know. So I think you might do something like this. Let's see if it works. Oh, wrong thing. Yes, I think it's config. This is already built in dotCMS, you know. So, and let's see one of the config methods. Get stream property. Okay. Okay, get string property, and we can use the property that we already override in the training. It was my prop. Let's use my prop. You know, so look for anything, save and publish. Okay, close it. Okay, test me. You see? Well, let's make just oh, sorry, just to make it clear. Look for instance, save and publish, close this, and as you can see, test me, you know. Some of the things that we have done in dotCMS, I mean, if you go to, let's see if it is, yeah. Okay, if you go to the file, we look for the property. and test me again and save. You see the logs. As you can see, we have something looking into the file, into this file, and it's in the cluster and some others. So if there is any change, hot change, we're gonna reload. So let's see if it worked. Okay, you see, test me again. So you can make changes over. I mean, again, this is just for testing, but you can make change over the file, the configuration file already deployed, and dotCMS is going to recognize that the file has been changed and reload all the properties. Sometimes there are properties that are already cached, in that constants or something like that. There is no other way that turn off the server and turn on again in order to get that changes. Okay, let's see if there is another question or not. Okay, it seems not, so let's continue, And again, these kind of things you can debug and whatever, as I already showed you. You only have to put the breakpoint. It's gonna work, I think so. If you just refresh this, okay, you get the debugger. We just release it. But okay, by the way, this is the new edit mode, It's the preview, the live, and this is totally made in Angular. We have new REST endpoints in order to serve the code. Yeah. It was one of the main milestones we did for FIO, so it is pretty cool. I mean, you can work with layouts and it's very, very flexible. And well, it's out of the scope, but it's something to keep in mind. Okay, let's move to the next one. We have more. Let's see if there's any question now. Okay. Uh, the next one will be, okay, we already covered the okay, the portlet. This is a very interesting example, there is a very interesting example, and we are going to add the portlet. As I mentioned before, the portlet is just one screen to provide UI to the user for something custom. We have actually plugins that add new portlets in order to manage the new functionality that you are going to add to dotCMS. So let's talk a little bit about them. As I mentioned, the backend of dotCMS is basically a portlet. It was because years ago we made a fork of library code and we built several portlets inside of it. And basically, it is the way that our system is made. It's a large collection of portlets. I mean, here in the interface of dotCMS, you can see all the portlets, but these are the default ones. There are more than you can add. So let's say you want to add your own section to the backend. Just like the ones that we have. I don't know, the site browser or the content search, so on. Uh, so that we are now we now if you need your own tooling in the backend you have to expose your custom functionality to the UI. So this is the thing that we're going to see right now. Okay, so let's see the example. The first thing, as usually, is to check the config folder. So here you will see a lot of new folders. Just let me close the previous example, but the first thing we want to see is the portlet XML, Uh, okay, this file contains the definition of an example portlet that we're going to use. In this case, we have two portlets, one is a velocity portlet, and another one is a struts. There is also a possibility to use a GSP portlet. They are a lot simple that the struts, or for instance, and basically that you have to do is just point to the GSP. It's very similar to this one, but of course you will have the limitations of it is content first instead of code first. But you can use also the Spring controllers. We don't have example, but eh, there are some clients that are already implement with Spring. So you can go to the portlet, which is in to the portlet XML, which is pre-bundled in the distro, and see a lot of examples. Usually, what we do for portlet, this is part of the Java Enterprise definitions. We just copy one of them, one example. I mean, this is a GSP, for instance. This is a struts. Let's see, velocity. There we have a velocity. Velocity, no. Okay, there is some example. So you just copy one of them and customize the fields that you want to override. For instance, here you only have to put some name and point to the template that you want, uh, and etc. Okay, and for instance, the GSP. Let's see, GSP is pretty much the same of velocity. You only have to point to a GSP. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, probably the guide tell us that we have to explain the struts portlet, but I just get uh, a warning today that we are not going to support. We are not longer supporting the struts portlet. I mean, it is still, as I mentioned before, still working on 5.0, but I think the idea is to retire the portlets with struts. So just keep that in mind. For 5.0, this example is gonna work. It's working. So we are not gonna extend a lot in the example, but in the future might not work. So just keep that in mind. However, let's explain a little bit. This is pretty much struts configuration. This is a pretty old configuration. This is a pretty old version. I think I was using struts 15 years ago. It was probably I think it was my first controller framework. I love it, at least at that time. Okay, so basically this is the path. You are telling this is the class that is gonna do the controller, and this is the forwards. The forwards are going to go to the tilus. So if we split it out the window, this one here, which is not a path, it's a key, has to match with this one. And it's going to this GSP. This GSP should be here. Okay, you see? And again, there are, well, yeah, I think there are hello words as well. So, yeah, and what else? Okay, yeah, basically this is the configuration for struts. And there is also the live reported XML, which is basically telling you which is the configuration of it. And the portlet XML. Okay, let's recap. Let's close this. Okay, so as I said, we have the library. The idea is here simple match with the portlet names that we set in the portlet X. In this one, it's just a simple match. Name here, name here. This is pretty much. So if you go to the directory structure or plugin under the static plugin, you will notice there is a view that is referring to this portlet XML. So Let's see here. You see, in this special folder, which is called static velocity, you place the velocity stuff, So great, there is another hello velocity and the date, you know. Okay, yeah. Uh, when this approach was created, we didn't have the root directory, I think so. It was a while ago. As part of the plugin structure, remember how the root directory works. Do you remember the example that we saw in the training? The training with the root. Oh, I already removed it, but did you remember? We have to create all this structure. So whatever you put in there will be automatically placed where it's supposed to go. It's gonna be override. So we recommend using the root directory to handle things because, in our opinion, it is more flexible, and you can just basically point from the system to create your directories. Stick the files into them, and then the files will just make during the way. So we will have never to create this placeholder such as the static files or uh, the static velocity. I mean these ones. These basically what I'm trying to say. These folders are still working, but are a pretty old legacy thing. Now that we try to use is the root. You know, but of course we are still supporting this. We just recommend to use this one. I think it's clear to understand. So basically the same thing happens to the JSP directory that we saw, this one. Okay, so we're going to see how it looks. Let me know if you have any question. No. So let's get back to the browser. Even that the fact that I already have the thing added here, we're going to show you how to do that. So you have to go to the system, then click on roles and tools. Here in this, you have to click in the tree view. There is the system and the CMS administrator. Then you can see in the right side, there is 3 tabs: users, permissions, and tools. So you double click here in the home. Again, double click here, just in case this is a mapping of the thing that you're seeing here. Home, site, content, so on. So what we want to do is to add to the home or new portlets that we already have added. So we have here, as you can see, the struts and the velocity. So I already add them. But for example, we can try to add. I mean, let me see what is the site. Yeah, we can add the site as well. See how it works. So here we have the struts. You see, and then the velocity one. So we have both safe. So we get back to here. I think we have to refresh. It is already cached. Site. There we go. We have the test structure, hello world under the site, and the velocity. So we click on it. We get the very simple new interface that we just developed. For example, this is basically this one. No, sorry. This one. No, sorry. This message. I am mixing my view. Hello world. You know, yeah, maximize view. If you see probably this message is going to came from the controller. As you can see, the controller is setting an attribute to the request, which is called hello world, and this is what we are just showing here. Retrieving the value and printing it. With Skrillet, and putting this message, which is pretty much the same thing. Not a big deal. And the velocity. If you remember, the velocity doesn't have any controller or whatever. It's just here in the static velocity, the view. So we are setting a variable, you know, with the value velocity. So we set hello velocity, and we print the date. You can do even forms or more complex things, and you can evenly create an angular styleless page. This is what we do, for instance, with the edit mode. you know Again, if you go here, click, this portlet is totally in Angular, and this is a stylus application. So for instance, you can take this out to the dotCMS, just point to the right endpoints, because it is based on content as a service. It's gonna work, most of them probably. you know so yeah, it is what we got for the portlet. We still having some time, so we're gonna see some other examples. Any questions, guys? Okay, there we go. Okay, we already covered uh, all the static. No, sorry, I was missing someone. Never mind. Okay, okay. The final plugin that is in the official plugin sets for static plugins is the hooks. We already talked a little bit about them, but now we're going to see some implementation. You know, so let's talk about it. This is this one. Just let me close this and this one. So, oops, just 1 second. This is just for legacy. Well, there's not so much to see here. Well, so, but I just want to show you one file. Again in the config, which is called plugin controller properties. So here you have two keys. The one is content API pre-hoops, sorry, and post hoops. You can have more than one. Just split it out by commas. And these are the hooks to override or to catch the content API functionality. So as I mentioned it several times, a hook is basically a way that for us to provide you such as a interceptor pattern. The approach looks very similar to, well, kind of, to aspect-oriented programming. By the way, dotCMS already introduced I think it was in the fourth version, one of the four releases, the uh, the AOP support powered by AspectJ. In order to handle database transactions by annotations and so on, I can show you example very quickly. I think so. Content API implementation, for instance. Wrap. Okay, for instance, this is an example of how we use AOP. So basically, when you uh, annotate a method with this annotation, basically your method is into a transaction, and it will handle the rollback, the commit, etc. So basically, we create that to start cleaning our code, and making it more robust. So we basically introduce the all the interceptors and etc. All the devices between uh, the code. It is happening not in runtime; it's happening in compile time. So, and we have more things. Not only that, we have other things that we are taking advantage from the AOP, and by now we're still using hoops, but I don't know, maybe in the future we move uh, all the uh, the content APIs methods that are wrapped into the hoops to AOP, but by now it is just an idea in my mind. So as I mentioned, and well, the question that was already made, this is only provided for content, for the content, actually for the content of the API. I think I already showed you the interfaces. In .cms, a content is anything that has a content type. For instance, sites, files, HTML pages, of course, the contents, etc. So all these things are handled by the content API. And as I mentioned before, the philosophy of .cms is try to take as much as the of the entities in the system and move to the content, because in that way we have versioning, we have post publish, log, etc. This was probably known as a structure, as you saw yesterday when we were looking into the database. So in this API, you might see several reference to variables called as our structure, methods, class name, etc. with the word structure or structure type. Just keep in mind that the new name that we're using .cms is content type. All the new stuff are reflecting this new concept. So the content will eventually go into the content API, this interface. So uh, so because this is one of our main API, probably the most important, because it's the one in charge of checking the content, checkout, saving, etc. Copying properties, cloning, blah blah blah. There is a lot of things. There is a lots of responsibilities for this one. Retrieving content, etc. So this for that reason, this is the only one, or this is the first one, or the only one that we have the pre hoops and post hoops. And as I mentioned when we were explaining at the beginning, this is useful for intercepting content before or after it's been saved in the database. You can, for example, internally modify the values of the content before checking. You can send, I don't know, an email maybe to some people to notify that the content was already checking. Which is useful for supporting or support system or whatever. You can also add comments, create tickets, etc. I mean, you can do several things around that. So let's close this and get back to the plugin. So as I said, we only have one, which is this one. So we go to the source. So we have another hello world. Basically, what we're doing is a log, info with the content ID. You know, uh, it will be happening when you check out the code in order to start making modifications to the content. One of the important things that you might, I mean, that we would like to show you is as part of the Java 8, the default methods was already introduced. So in the documentation, you might see that the people is extending from a class, an abstract class, and they have a lot of methods empty. This is no longer needed. Now you only have to override the method, the only one that you want to override, not all of them, because the rest of them are implemented by default by the interface. You see, it's pretty straightforward. So you only have to implement now what you want. I think I already modified this for the presentation, but if you go to the code, that's something I will probably merge tomorrow or ask to merge. But if you go to the code here, you will see it is extending, not implementing, it is extending from this class, and it is implementing a lot of empty methods. It was the way to work before, but now you only have to do that. Is much better and cleaner. Okay, so that's pretty much, for the contentlet, for the hoops. It's a pretty powerful tool if you want to intercept things in when you are working with contents. So let's make uh, some test, you know. But first of all, let's see if there is any question. No questions there. So yeah, get back to the browser. So we're going to go to the contentlet API. So sorry, it's content search. So we're gonna take some of the. If you remember, yesterday we create this training contentlet type. So let's modify. But first of all, let's see the. Okay, this one is not. Okay, I think this one is the. Okay, okay. Let's do the output. You know, well, that's something we have to mention. I think it's important. One of the changes that we made in file is all the logs by default are going to the Catalina out. Before file, we still split it out between in the dotCMS, in the dot.secure folder, and so on. Right now we go simpler, and we are moving everything to Catalina out. However, the previous configuration file is already there. I think is backup or something like that. So you only have to rename the one that is by default and get back the previous one. You know, if you want to get all the detail or split it out uh, between the different uh, logs. You know, yeah, it's the log4j example. Yeah, if you go to the code, the log4j example. Just now that I make this is the previous one configuration, and here next to it you will find a new one which is simpler. You know, I think we made this change because it was easier for the containerization. I think I pronounced that okay. But basically for Docker, we're right now working with Docker, so I think it was easier for Docker to have everything in the Catalina output. So okay, the we already cleaned the console, so let's make a checkout. So any of this save or save and publish, they're gonna uh, call the contentlet API. So 8 and 8, save and publish, and then okay. So here, I don't know if you can see it, but here there is a prehop being called. So hello world plugin prehop about get this inode, and that's it. So the example is very very simple, very straightforward, but yeah, you can do more complicated things. Actually, I have used hoops in the past when I need to do validations, I think, to the content. Basically, uh, when you want to leave the user the opportunity to, for instance, to fit the contentlet, but you want to make some validations over the fields. Let's say you are going to configure, I don't know, LDAP. So you create a content type to configure LDAP. So when they save and publish, you want to make sure that the properties or the values for the property set uh, are okay, are valid, or at least exist, or whatever, so you might make a validation into the pre-hood, you know so yeah, this is all we have for the pre-hood. I don't know if you have any question, guys. uh, no. Okay. Finally, this is a bonus. This is not part of the plugin sets. Here is not part of it, but it was something that I said, well, if I have some extra time, I would like to show you. So we were talking about actionlets, and workflows and etc. So why not to show you how you can add an actionlet. So I was playing with it. So here, well, we don't have anything in the config or whatever, because we're mostly using the dot initializer in order to tell dotCMS initialize this or add to the core this actionlet. So let's see the actionlet before. you know so we have another hello. So, and it is extending from the workflow actionlet, you know and it is implemented as the previous example we saw, when we're including the lib, the dot initializer interface. So basically, this is from the dot initializer. We're just using the API locator to get the workflow API. Workflow API is implementing this interface in order to be aware about adding new actionlets. So we just make a casting, and then when we get this aspect of the workflow API, we just call the method add actionlet, and we pass the class name, or the class, sorry, not the class name, the class of the hello actionlet. These are methods that you're gonna use just to expose in the UI for the user the actionlet. So this is the name, and this is an explanation of what it does. You know, and yeah, well, here what we are doing is just saying hello to the contentlet. Uh, Here are the parameters. If you remember when we were talking about workflows, let me see if we can go to the workflows. Content type, workflows, system, I don't know, save. For instance, comment. This parameter, this text field, or I don't know, I think push publish, for instance, is a better example. Sorry, not this one. Well, yeah, for ice. All of these parameters are gonna be, if there exists, are gonna be mapped in this one, and the processor basically has the information of the context. In that case, uh, sorry for this convention. I don't know. IntelliJ IDEA is trying to make me feel like Java 10 or something like that convention, with the bar and etc. But it's just an illusion. Yeah, as I said, in the processor, you can just get the contentlet, you can get the user and so on. So basically, we're saying hello. I think I was trying to do something here, that I was trying to generate um, a notification here as well, but I do not recall if I already test. So it is pretty much the same thing. You start the application, and okay. First of all, let's clean this. So I think I already create a one, but let's create a new. Let's remove this one, and let's create a new one. So probably say name training save and hello to everyone. It's a huge name, you know. We're gonna keep in the same step, you know. We're gonna show this just in editing. No matter no matter what, we'll probably have to be lock and locked, yeah. And we want to show you no matter what, or archive not, but if it is new, publish and publish, you know. So we don't want to notify that we want to we want to save, and then we want to we have to look for here uh, the hello. There we are, you know, hello world. So as you can see, the name that we use here is the same name that you will see in the drop down, you know. You click here and yeah, this is the descriptions. We don't have any properties, so this is the reason it is empty. Okay, so we have two actions, save and content. It means when the training save and hello to everyone action is being called, it's gonna save the content and then call to the hello world actionlet, you know, that we already add by the plugin. So we save. Just let me make sure that everything's okay, you know. So this is just for the new. So let's create a new one. Okay, let's create a new which one, training. Okay, so we're gonna say this is a test for the training, test for the training, and you can see here we have the action. One important thing is, I don't know if you can see, but there is a drive here, an icon. Basically, it says that this action is gonna save. It's gonna save the form here because it has a save action. You know, I think tomorrow we will see another example a little bit more complete. We'll see tomorrow. So we call this, and it seems it works. So if we go to the log, where is the which one is the log? This one. Okay, yeah, there we are. Hello, test for training, you know. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, this is the thing. Uh, the name of it is test for training. So we are saying hello to the contentlet name, you know, test for training. So this is basically what is our actionlet doing, you know, but it might be anything, and I think it might be here. You see, we are sending a notification that says test for training a minute. Well, it is the time was a minute ago. We can try another one, you know. Let's clean it up here. So another test, another another test. So we call our custom action. We check the logs. Hello to another test. We go to the notifications and we get the notification. You know, these notifications have been set for our WebSockets. If by some reason you have, I don't know, a firewall or something that is interrupting the WebSockets, we are going to move to long pooling. But with the long pooling, we have, I think, by default, 15 seconds of the long requests. So in the worst case, you might wait 15 seconds when you're using long pooling to get the notifications. You know. So yeah, this is basically what we have, guys. I don't know if you have a question, comment, or or anything. No? Okay, cool. I hope you learned a little bit more about how to extend dotCMS functionality. We saw several examples today. We saw how to override classes, we saw how to override configuration, how to use libs, external libs. We also see how to add a servlet, a view tool, even a macro hoops, and actionlets. We saw a lot of things, and also we learn how to use dot initializers, and well, there are more things. There is just, I mean, because the time, there is just a few examples of dotCMS, but there are more things, around there that we have. For instance, we have something called web interceptors. That is the way to customize all the filters that we have, and we have more things, as I said, the local events. I think we have an example for tomorrow. We will see if the time is good with us, and etc. So it was everything for today. Thanks a lot for your time, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night.